This is Hot Mic. Hot Mic. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, ready to rock and roll here on this Wednesday morning. This is the ultimate of how you know you're a big deal. Gray is on his way, as he just texted me. He's a couple minutes away. Got caught on a team interview. So I guess you got to take that call if a team is looking to call you, want to know what's going on, and chat with you. That's kind of a big deal. So he'll be joining us here in mere moments. Let's go through a couple of the last few mocks that we've seen on the Bison All-American left tackle. The most recent came out on yesterday from Mike Tannenbaum, who's former Jets general manager, who was consulting with the Jets again for their hiring of Aaron Glenn. His mock had Gray as the last pick of the first round to the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, saying Philly doesn't have many apparent short-term needs. So even though I'm standing in for GM Howie Roseman, I'm sticking with his draft tendencies and addressing the trenches. Zabel is tough and versatile, and he was outstanding at the Senior Bowl. He played both tackle spots and both guard spots at North Dakota State, but I see him playing guard in the pros. And I think Zabel could compete with Tyler Steen to replace Mekhi Becton, who left to go to the Chargers. So that's just the latest in a long line here of projections. Daniel Jeremiah has had him as high as 16. Jeremiah, of course, works for the NFL Network, to the Arizona Cardinals. We've seen him floated at 18. We've seen him go potentially to the Vikings of the 24th spot. All you should know is that the groundswell since Mobile in early February has leapt him from the second round, and he was, I think, by all consensus, by the end of the FCS season, he was going to be maybe the first FCS guy off the board, to go from the middle part of the second round, probably right around where Cody Mauch was drafted. Cody was the 47th pick by the Bucs 2 years ago, to now we're into mid to late first round draft territory. That's just, I mean, crazy things happen on draft night every year. We can safely assume on that. So there's nothing locked on this, but it certainly seems like the winds are blowing in that direction, that he can potentially be that high of a pick. And for those that missed it, and we'll talk about this when he joins us, his Senior Bowl, we have highlights of what he did. If you were not paying attention to Senior Bowl week, what he did during that week in Mobile was phenomenal. I mean, and we'll ask him about it, but we got the highlights of this. He was asking different players to say, yeah, come on, you want to do a rep? Let's go. And Gray routinely was beating those guys on each rep during the week. By virtue of that, he was named the practice player of the week, not just individual for his position, for the entire week. He was the top practice player. That's as good as it gets. I mean, you see there are guys that he's going up against from Michigan, Nebraska. You name the Power 5 school that wanted to rep against him, and he took it. And say 9 times out of 10, he won it. And you could hear the broadcasters each and every time, like, oh, Gray won that one. There's another one that Zabel won. That's another one that went to Gray. That alone got the attention of the people here. So, and Eric, he just told me he's here. So if we have somebody go get him, that'd be great. The important part to me on this is that the reps that he had were impressive each time. It wasn't like there was a time where he wasn't took a rep off or he looked like he was overwhelmed. That was certainly not the case for the week there. The game, again, was, I won't say irrelevant, but it certainly wasn't what they're looking for. They're looking for what he could do for the 4 days of practice, and obviously the interviews. And that's something we had Tim Polisic here last week. We were talking about the start of spring football, and we asked Tim about Gray. And I know Polisic got down to Mobile for a couple days, and that's the thing that we can't know, and maybe we'll ask him. I'm not sure how much he'd be willing to share, is during the interview process is how much he killed it there and really impressed when he got up on the whiteboard and showed exactly where to go. That's the unquantifiable stuff that we just don't see on a highlight. We don't give access to that. It's only after the fact, when the draft is in the rearview mirror, that's when you actually find out how much a team really likes said player. I can remember vividly during the lead up to the draft in 2016 when Carson Wentz was selected second overall. It was when, and his physical tools, obviously without saying, that his ability to throw, his ability to get down, all that was what he did on the whiteboard. Like John Gruden used to have his old QB show, and Carson went up there and just able to illustrate everything that Gruden was throwing at him. And I think from what I remember on that the scouts were just blown away on his ability to decipher a play, break it down, all of that. Same thing here with Gray. And that's the part that's really interesting here for what's potentially at the next level. And as I mentioned off the top of the show, we're a month out. The draft is April 24th here, so we're getting down to it in the nitty-gritty. There he is, the man himself. Come on in, have a seat. Thanks, Eric. Fidel does everything on the show. Everybody wants to know, you said you had a team call? You tell us who you were talking to?
Yeah. No, we were just doing a little Zoom interview and stuff. So just basically my life nowadays.
So it's great to see you. Don't worry about those. Thanks for doing this, man. How you been?
I've been well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a hectic last, we last chatted in person. It was right after the game in Frisco, and you were literally flying to California. So for people that don't know, give us a life update of the last basically 2.5 months, what it's been like for you.
Yeah, it's been busy, been flying around the country. So after that game, the next day I flew out to Irvine, California to start training. Immediately started kind of getting the 2024 season off my body and start preparing for the Senior Bowl, the Combine, Pro Day, all that stuff. And then basically over past few months, just been training and traveling to the Senior Bowl and then to Indianapolis for a Combine, and now I'm back in Fargo here for.
So training, you're not doing really any football stuff, right? I mean, you're getting ready to do a 40 or getting ready to do the cone drills, all of that. Can you tell us about, because you're not doing normal football activities, right?
Yeah. So the month of January, it was more of like football stuff, football related stuff, lifting, working on O-line stuff, because you're going down to the Senior Bowl and having to play for a week and then a game. And then the day after the Senior Bowl, it's like bang, right to Combine. Training starts up. You're doing nothing football related. You're like seeing how high you can jump, how far you can jump, how fast you can run. And that's like the funny part about it is that month of February, it's like, I don't think I had a bar on my back or like squatted a single day. It was.
Did you ever have a football in your hand at all there during that time?
Yep, we still did like O-line drills and stuff that we're going to have to do at the Combine.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so Combine goes, that goes well. And I want to break down each of this here over the time we got with you. And now it's tomorrow's Pro Day. But so you've done almost everything. What do you have in store for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll do the O-line drills.
Okay.
And then kind of just depending on how I feel, I'll probably do my agilities, like the 5-10-5 or the L cone that I didn't do in Indianapolis.
Nah, the 5-10. I've gotten used to. I know that what actually is now for an offensive line drill. This it's almost over. Tomorrow's the last checkbox. To check mark it off. Are you excited to have it finally be done?
Yeah. This process has been like super enjoyable, but at the same time, it's been like just stressful. And it's kind of like you said, you're checking boxes along the way, like Senior Bowl check, Combine check, Pro Day check. And then you get into the month of April, and then now you're traveling and taking 30 visits and going to basically as many teams as you possibly can in those 3 weeks of April. So
tell me what your representatives have told you about what next month could look like.
Yeah, it's busy. And then they just kind of said, like, they aren't for sure where yet, or what kind of team. They know a general like area, but free agency is also like starting to wrap up here a little bit. It's starting to slow down. I mean, guys can still get traded and picked up, but it's super funny because it's as you're going through this process, you're like, okay, maybe this team, and this team. Free agency rolls around and you then are like, okay, not that team.
Cross that one off.
Yeah. You start going through that entire process. So
I remember talking with Cody, and he mentioned to me Tampa Bay was interested, but they weren't overtly. Is that something in the back of your mind? Like, okay, this team may, they talked to me once or twice. Is that something I got to file away, though? Maybe that's the one that ends up calling?
Yeah. And it's a funny thing. Like, everybody I talk to, like Cody, Dylan, Cordell, they're all like, the team that doesn't really talk to you is probably the team that's going to pick you. Like, they're playing games with every other team.
Kyle Emanuel told me that all the time about the Chargers. The Chargers, I don't think, talked to him once, and they ended up drafting him.
Yeah. So it's like having that in the back of your mind where other times you're like, okay, do they actually like me? Is this just smoke and mirrors for other teams? Like, so you kind of got to know that game being played.
All right, we're going to break here. We'll get you a chance to breathe here after just getting in here. We're going to get in and talk about, first we'll get to the Senior Bowl, the Combine, all that great stuff. Grey Zabel is here. We got him for a little bit before the NFL calls him again. Back on Hot Mic right after this. All right, we got the man a chance to breathe deep. Back here with Grey Zabel. Going to join us here for a couple segments. So you win the national championship. By the way, I'm going to say this. There was still not a penalty on you for that unnecessary roughness that happened. That's just blocking, is it not, in the championship game?
Yeah. I mean, Coach P gave us the pass, like, before the game. Like, hey, play in the gray area. Like, play to the echo of the whistle. I still remember on the sidelines making adjustments, and Coach Larson is saying, like, great, we can do a lot of things on third down. 3rd and 22 handcuffs us a little bit on what we can do. So, but.
Oh, that was, I think I remember you had your hands up like this, like what? I was playing, like, that just happens, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So you mentioned you were out of California getting ready for the Senior Bowl, and we talked before that, knowing full well the lineage of Bison have gone to Mobile and really helped themselves. What was your mindset going into the Senior Bowl of what you wanted to do down there?
Yeah, I would say the mindset that I had going into it was just go down there and kind of take our 3 core values of the compete, improve, and be tough that Coach P kind of instilled in us in the past year or so. And understanding that as you went in there and saying, like, hey, I know Cody's came down here and competed. I know Dylan has came down here and competed. Christian's came down and competed. Like, guys like that, you cannot kind of understand that, like, there's a tradition you got to uphold, and taking that down to Mobile was pretty cool.
Well, you definitely embraced the compete angle of it, because every day we're getting video clips and we're showing them here on the show and on the news. Like, you're taking on everybody. Give me that of what that's like. Like, you're like, okay, I want another rep. Come on, let's do it. What was that a thought like this is what I want to do? I got to show this off for the scouts.
Yeah, I wanted to show my versatility and be able to play multiple positions, but then at the same time, it's like you see every single guy, and there's something different about them, or they have a different aspect of the game that's really good, and you're like, hey, let's go see if I can go up against this guy or go up against that guy. And having that mentality throughout the 3 days of practice kind of like helped set myself apart a little bit.
So we're watching clips here, man. You won. Is there a rep that you can remember? Like, boy, I didn't get the best of that guy. Like, I almost every time you're up on your own 2 feet.
Oh yeah, I got beat a few times. There was I think like 3 or 4 reps where I was like, I definitely want that rep back. But they always talk about like win percentages and stuff, and it's like I don't know. Or somebody told me, or some coach told me that, like, I took the most reps down there. And it's like, hey, at the end of the day, like, you still have a pretty high win percentage, but at the same time, like, my thought is like chase perfection, knowing you're not going to be able to achieve it, but you want to be as close to perfect as possible.
To be named the practice player of the week, what's that mean to you?
It was super cool, especially with the talent there was down there. To have that honor was super cool, and that just goes to show that the Bison pride kind of carries true throughout whatever level of football you play, and to be able to kind of have that to show that NDSU is truly like who we say we are is super special.
I mean, that's 4 times in a row that a Bison has gone down to Mobile and earned either the overall practice player of the week or won it for their position group. That's amazing. because you know the level of talent that there.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are going to be drafted probably ahead of you. Some guys are going to go high in the first round here in a month.
Yeah, just carrying on that tradition that guys set before me. And I hope someday there's a kid in this spot years down the road that's talking about me like that. So that's kind of something I look forward to.
All right, so out of that, then what are your reps telling you after that when Mobile's done? Because I think prior, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, going in, you're probably middle of the second round, and then that all changed leaving Alabama.
Yeah, I think that helped me out quite a bit. Super kind of the ability to showcase what I can do at a high level like that against high level talent, because the biggest knock for every single guy coming out of NDSU is the competition. That sucks to say, but that's just the truth. And then going down and be able to showcase that you can do it against the SEC, ACC type players, they kind of eliminates that competition aspect of things.
Okay, so you mentioned in the first segment here, after Mobile, then it's, basically you're doing non-football training to get ready for the combine. What is the anticipation like for that? Everybody knows about the combine. It's one thing, the Senior Bowl, that's probably for hardcore draft nerds. Combine, everybody tends to watch that. What were you going in with your mindset for that?
Yeah, mindset was just go and showcase your athletic ability. I think that's what the combines kind of moved to or transitioned to over the past few years is the people truly watch the 40, the vertical, and then they kind of doze off in the O-line drills type things.
Not around here, man. You know
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Watch the O-line here.
But understanding that, it's like, okay, you got to go and show your athletic ability at the highest of stages with every single scout and coach watching you there.
So you did not do the 40. Tell us what was the reasoning on that?
Yeah, I think it was the day 2 of the Senior Bowl, that Wednesday. I had a groin strain in practice because I remember I tried reaching like a 2-eye on outside zone. I was like, ooh, that didn't feel the best.
Yeah.
And then I remember calling my agent after practice and like telling him that. And he was like, okay, do you want to play football 2 more days or 2 more times? Or do you want to run a 40 in Indy? And I was like, oh, easy decision.
Yeah.
Football, 100%.
Yeah.
And then throughout the month of February, I was just rehabbing it, trying to get it back to 100% so I could do all the O-line drills and run and jump in Indy.
So we're watching a little bit of the tape here. For people that don't know, give us what is these drills? What are you doing here?
Yep. So that's just a long pole drill right there. Basically showing you like your ability to open up your hips and run.
How about this?
This is just pass pro. And then I don't really know what you do when you turn and run. Is that
Because you don't do that.
Yeah, trying to find the ball or something. But yeah, this is pass pro here.
That's your bread and butter. That part I still don't understand though. Like I need somebody smarter than me in football to understand why you got to run backwards after that. How about this as well?
Yeah, this is just the wave drill, so it's like stop and start, be able to keep your hips underneath you.
Have you watched this yet? Or is this your first time watching a little bit?
Well, this is just a screen drill right there. But it's like my parents asked me afterwards because they were there.
Yep.
Love them to death.
Yep.
My dad's like asked me like, "What'd you think? Like, how do you think you did?" I was like, "I can't remember a single drill." Like you go up to a line, and you put your hand on the ground,
Yep.
and you just like completely black out.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't remember a single thing I did until like afterwards when we go back and like watch every single drill. So
This one as well. What's this when you're keeping your eyes on the ball here?
this is just movement based.
Okay.
How well you can stop and start and all this. This is just short pull here. So it basically shows you how close you can stay to a line while getting around the cone.
It seemed a lot of the other players maybe didn't know you, or you guys you got to know seemed to gravitate towards you during the combine. What was that like?
It was super cool because at the Senior Bowl, you make a ton of relationships because you're down there for, I think, 8 days. You go through practice. You go through kind of like the struggles of practice and meetings and long days and all that stuff. And then it's a month without seeing them. And then you see them at the combine. And then they're also bringing their friends from like their training facilities. So then you meet those guys too. So it was super cool. And the relationships I made at both the Senior Bowl and combine it's super cool to like stay in touch with them.
All right, I got a couple emails to ask. One, and this is actually a question I had as well. What is the bizarre question you got? We all hear of that. So did you get one at the combine that was kind of off the wall? Or are they more pretty straightforward this year?
They were pretty straightforward. I was like expecting to get like a few where it's just kind of like the head scratcher questions.
Yes. Joe Haggett told me, former Bison All-American, that he got asked, do you like cats or dogs? Like,
Yeah,
So did
I've
that.
had guys like ask that and stuff.
Yeah.
I
That
mean,
relates to football
yeah,
playing.
the normal one is like, what do you do after wins, or like, what do you do after games on Saturdays?
Okay.
And like, my response was like, well, is it a win or a loss?
Yeah.
Like, you celebrate the wins, and then you try and like hide in your room after losses and like figure out how to win.
Yeah.
So it's like that was probably just a normal one I got.
For another ask, and this one is a good email, is can you describe what a day is like at the combine when you're not on the field? So everybody sees that part, Gray, we were just showing, but you were there, 3 days before, maybe another day after, right? Just with doing meetings, correct?
Yep. I would say the worst day is the medical day for sure. It's like you get up, you have like a quick meeting on like what to expect, and then you go to the hospital at like I think 7 or 8 a.m.
Oof.
And then they basically put you through like your body weight. They have you do a DEXA scan that shows like your body fat and muscle and all that stuff. And then for basically every injury you had in college, they do like tests on like, or not tests, but like blood work, x-rays, MRIs, chest scans, like all that. And so you're like spending the entire day at the hospital.
Oof.
And it's like the worst thing ever. And then you get back and you have supper, and then you immediately go over to the stadium and have like interviews from like 9 to I think 11 or like 11:30. And then it's always funny, like they shut down all the interviews, but then right as you walk out, there's like somebody there that catches you
Hey,
that
can I
wants
grab
to,
you?
yeah, that wants to talk more or something. So that was probably like the longest day
Wow.
for me.
So for you obviously you had the broken leg during your freshman year. Was that something that they scanned more heavily?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. I took an MRI, X-ray, and then I took X-rays and MRIs on my other one just to see like the contrast
Stability.
of the two.
Okay.
And I mean, shout out to Dr. White here in Fargo. It was pristine. Like they're super happy with everything, and very, very grateful.
That's good.
For him.
Yeah. That clean bill of health out of that. What I know you can you tell us how many teams you talked to when you were in Indy? Do you remember how many?
Yeah, I think I had, I want to say like 14 formal interviews.
Wow.
And then informal interviews, I think you meet with like all the teams.
So you would say you've met with everybody?
Basically. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the formal stuff. Are they having you go up on the whiteboard and do stuff? Is it more like this, or is it both?
Yeah, it's both. It's like interview. There's a few teams that like install like a pass play and a run play, and then they'll go watch your film and talk to you and ask you questions, and it's just kind of the rapid fire questions. And then at the end, they make you kind of teach you their run play and pass play back to you. So we always talk about like a short-term memory test.
For an offensive lineman, that's always a good thing to have on that. You got time for like 10 more minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to break here. We come back. More on Grey Zabel, the draft process, and getting ready for Pro Day tomorrow. We got to ask about QB1 as well. He's going to be there. Going to be a bunch of the NFL there tomorrow. That's coming up when Hot Mike returns after this. Welcome back, everybody. A few more minutes with Bison All-American Grey Zabel, getting ready for NDSU Pro Day tomorrow morning. We'll be there. How many benches did you do? Did you do that? Or are you going to do that tomorrow?
Nope, I did 26.
Holy cow.
So I immediately heard it right afterwards from Cody and Jake about how I wasn't able to do as many as them.
What did Cody do?
I think Cody did 29 and Jake did 28.
So, it's funny you mentioned Cody, because I remember when he was going through this whole thing, you were right there with him. I remember you went down to the big draft party that he had. What did you take away from that to file away to say, just to mentally prepare for what was going to come for you?
Yeah, I think going to both Cordell and Cody's draft parties, the one thing that I want to do, or I'm going to try to do at my draft party, is like take time and talk to every single person there, because I think Cordell and Cody did an unbelievable job of like kind of showing their appreciation for everybody, and especially in like Hankinson, where I think it was the entire town and then some.
Yes, it was.
It was in their VFW, right?
Yes, it was.
And he took the time and like talked to
He did.
everybody there, which was super cool. And so did Cordell up in his shop there. And then understanding like you have no idea where you're going, you have no choice or say in where you're going. and just having an open mind in the entire process. Those are two things that I'm going to take away.
So is it a 2-day party? Because you may have to have one on Thursday and maybe on Friday. Like, what's the plan?
Yeah. Right now, like, I don't know. Like, obviously Thursday night we're going to watch and I'm going to be around my family and stuff. And then Friday night we're doing kind of like a party and stuff at an event center down in Pier. So I always said, like, excited for day one, but expect day two. That's kind of the mentality that you got to have going into it. Because, like I said, you have no idea where you're going to go.
So tomorrow, for people that are going to watch, what are your plans for tomorrow? What you're going to be doing?
Yep. So I'll do the O-line work, and then depending on kind of how I feel, either a 5-10-5 or the L cone or the agilities.
Out of that, because there's going to be a ton of people here, and obviously every time they're looking at a piece of video, they got to be looking at your quarterback. How often did you get asked about Cam?
A ton. Every single, like, I would say almost every single interview they asked about QB1.
Yeah.
And, like, he's one of my really good buddies, and I can say it, like, he should have been there.
At the combine you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. But I understand Cam with the chip on his shoulder. He's going to go out tomorrow and I think prove to every single scout or team why he should have been there. And that's just kind of how Cam is prove the doubters wrong. I mean, he'd done it. He did his entire career at NDSU. And so I'm super excited. And I know he's going to be very successful at the next level.
This is total speculation on your part, but for what he did at his All-Star game, there's momentum moving for him to, I would think, be a day 3 NFL draft pick.
Absolutely. And I know if he could go back, he'd probably say, like, he could take 3 or 4 plays back where he dropped his snap or something like that. But people have no idea how hard it is to completely change centers like that in an all-star game. And I took part of that. Like, I was the center. And like, every single play, like, the QB and you were talking, like, hey, how was that exchange? Like, all that stuff. So understanding that.
Because you snapped at the Senior Bowl as well.
Yeah. And understanding that, you understand how challenging it is. And seeing it from the other side is like that. But he had an unbelievable game. I think he had 2 or 3 touchdowns. He showed off his ability to both run and throw. That one play he made on 3rd down where he, like, scrambled out of the pocket, I was like, yeah,
that's vintage there, right?
That's QB1. Seen that a time or two. But he's going to prove a ton of people wrong. I'm so excited for him.
I believe 5 QB coaches are going to be here from different NFL teams tomorrow, I was told. I don't even remember Carson Wentz or Trey Lance getting that. And obviously each scenario is different. That's a pretty big deal about what they think and what they want to see out of him.
Yeah, and I think 5 of them understand how good a football player he is by coming and showing up to watch him. And I know, I like you said, I'm going to be a homer for him. Like, I'm pulling for him. He's a really, really good quarterback.
The guy on the other side of the line, too, got invited to an all-star game in Mason Miller. And Mace, I know, is been working hard up in the training house in Minneapolis. And his size alone, and he's a Bison offensive lineman. I think Jake went through this last year, Jake Kubis, because of just where he played football, and Jake ended up starting this year with the New York Giants as a free agent, that Mason could go that same route.
Yeah, and he's a really good football player to start. He's huge.
He's that too.
And then, like you said, he's a Bison football player. And I think through his process, everybody said, like, every scout, every team said, like, show me your 5 best friends and I'll show you who you are. Like, our 5 best friends is Cordell Volson, Cody Mauk, Jake Kubis, Mason Miller, and me. Like, those were our 5 guys that we hung out in college the entire time. So it's like, understanding that, like, he's got a lot of things going for him.
Is there anybody tomorrow that, I mean, there's 13 some odd guys that are going to be going. Is there one that maybe we should keep our eyes on? Boy, this guy could maybe test well and because there's always one that maybe that catches everybody's or catches the scout's eye. Anybody that we should keep our eyes on tomorrow?
I would say 2. I'd say Braylon Henderson and Nick Kubitz.
Okay.
Both are going to test extremely well. I know Braylon's going to run super fast. I watched it every single day in practice. And then Nick Kubitz is going to run extremely fast.
Okay.
I think he's going to jump out of this gym. And I think they're both going to do really well in the drills. Those are 2 guys, I would think. And then I got to run into Bo Belquist, who was catching routes for Cam. I think he's going to be down here.
Okay.
That's another guy, like, had to play against him the past 5 years. So, I know how good a football player he is.
Is there who would you say, you could say this now, was the best athlete on the team? Just bar none. That guy regardless football player, he was the best athlete.
I don't know why I'm drawing. Oh, Cole Payton.
Yeah.
I don't know why I drew a blank. That's the easiest choice. Like Cole Payton, 100%. There's no question.
And I mean, literally, when you saw him line up at tight end this past year, I mean, were you just shaking your head like, nah, we expect him to go make a play?
No. The one thing I did kind of crack up about is when he was sitting in a punt meeting one time and we're going over punt and I see him out there like taking reps on film. I kind of like turned back to him. I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I think I'm going to be on punt. And then that week, or for like, I think like 3 or 4 weeks, he was on our punt team. And like, he's our backup quarterback.
Yep.
He plays tight end in practice.
Yep.
He was like a running back on short yardage. Like, and then you go and see his numbers in the like weight room. And yeah, I don't even know why I like took time or hesitated on that.
It's all right. We're thinking about it.
Yeah, it's Cole Payton, 100%.
If he is the guy next year, what should Bison fans that you saw him every day in practice know about what he can do throwing the football?
Don't be worried. Like, dude's a really good quarterback, and he throws the football really well. I mean, he was a baseball player in high school.
Much like yourself.
He was a center fielder. Super athletic, and so you know he can throw. And I think I go back to, I believe it was 2023 or 2022 where he came in late in the game and he threw the ball extremely well. So not to be worried.
Okay.
We're in really good hands.
I have an email to ask. This is from your Twitter account. Did you tell the scouts about your basketball ability? Because you love to hoop. You used to hoop it up all the time, right?
Yeah. Well, they asked like what we did for fun in Fargo in
Yeah.
the winters, and I was like, 3 things: it's lift weights, play simulator golf,
Okay.
and then play intramural basketball. And they're like, intramural basketball? Your coaches let you do that? And I was like, our coaches did not know about it. I remember that one winter, like everyone was playing intramural basketball,
Yeah.
and then we'd play pickup basketball in the shack.
Yep.
And there was some other sports team coach told Entz, and Entz was like, do not get hurt.
Yeah, that's probably not great. You don't want to
Yeah,
have that go down in the off season and have that. This time of year, spring football just got started on Monday. How much do you not miss that? With the grind of spring ball of getting ready for that?
I personally liked spring ball
Yep.
because you get every other day off. And then on your off days, all you have is like a shortened lift. And then you're with the guys, and we always like, I don't know if they still practice Friday afternoon.
They will. Yeah, they will
They
be.
will.
Yep.
Yeah, that like Friday afternoon after practice, that feeling of like, hey, let's go get food, all the guys, and we just go straight from basically the locker room. That was like the best part. And then it's kind of, if you earn the right to have the workload kind of lightened up a little bit and not have to like be fighting for a spot and stuff, to where it's like, hey, you just go play football every other day. Like, that's the greatest thing about spring football. But obviously it's a little tougher if you having to wake up at 6 or 5 a.m. every morning. So
Obviously, the other part of this upcoming Bison football season is offensive line, because with yourself and Mason moving on, what should Bison football fans watching this, know about the up-and-coming guys, the ones that you saw in practice every day that should have confidence for 2025?
yeah, once again, not to worry. I mean, they just hired a great offensive line coach, Coach Larson, coaching at tight end, so you know he's going to be around the line of scrimmage.
How about you feel about him going to OC, by the way? Let me get your first thoughts on that.
I'm super excited. He's going to kill it. His football mind is really, really smart, and we're going to run the damn ball a lot. So I'm super excited for football and NDSU football. But then we have young guys coming up that are really good football players, and you got your guys like Trent and Griff that are going to lead them really, really well. Super excited for the guys up front and for guys to get an opportunity to go play.
The fact that you got that opportunity in the crazy spring year, and I know we look back at it now like, man, it just was odd, but that opportunity to play a few games before you got hurt, how much do you think that actually springboarded you to be ready to play when the fall came around, or the following seasons after that?
Yeah, I was just talking with Cordell about this. I think it was super important because it gave you a taste of like football, and then it gave you something to work for, kind of to get back to, and like, hey, that was super fun. Let's go and try and get back to playing. And then it also helped out playing next to a guy like Cordell, who was a really good football player. But like, I go back and watch those games, and I'm just like, I cringe because like I'm like a giraffe out there, like just so uncoordinated. Like, I don't know what Coach Larson saw that like he threw me out there, but it's just like I just go back and watch this. I'm like, come on, Greg.
Well, you started as a literally a true freshman. Mason started that year as well. Jake Rock started that year. I mean, you think about it; those were all guys that were starters this past season that all got chances to start during that spring year, which is crazy.
Yeah, Lars earned his money that spring year. he earned his paycheck that year. We say that.
There was you've probably seen it. I tweeted it out from the championship game a few years ago against Montana State, where every single offensive lineman got a crack in the NFL. You're going to be the next to be part of that group. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's unreal. Just the tradition that NDSU football has, especially with the guys up front. It's super cool that every single one of those guys started a game in the NFL. And it just goes to show that, like, anything you want, you can go achieve from NDSU. You can go anywhere you want to go from NDSU, if that's job, if that's football, if that's life post-college. And so understanding that and having players understand that even more, to where, like, hey, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like, NDSU is the place to be, and I think they're going to use that moving forward in recruiting for sure.
My last question is about that. To hold, maybe you're going to be the poster child of that. That hey, there were definitely offers out there for you to go and transfer. You decided to stay, and now you're going to be a highly drafted pick. Are you okay with kind of being the poster child for that? To say, you know what, you can get everything you want if you wanted to stay.
Yeah. I would say so. I know that throughout this process and understanding that, like, holding true to NDSU was super important. And I think a lot of the NFL teams see that. And I always say the guys who believed in me first, the coach ends, Coach Blazek, Coach Roll, and Coach Kramer, I know those guys aren't here at NDSU now, but they laid a foundation that, like, I wanted to come back and give back to NDSU as much as I could. And Coach Kramer pouring into me and developing me into who I am today, like, I couldn't leave that. I want as much time as I can with that guy, and I cherish time that I can come back and hang out with him in the weight room or just talk to him in the weight room.
What did you come in? How much weight did you got here in Fargo in your freshman year, 2020? What did you weigh?
I think I was like 240. I always tell a story. On my junior visit, I stepped on the scale and I was like 232 pounds.
No kidding.
And Coach Kramer just kind of starts chuckling. And he's like, yeah, I can work with this. Like, he like saw a vision. He's like, I can get you to 300. Yeah. So that's just the craziest part about the whole thing.
But you were a good baseball player, right? Mm-hmm. You played outfield, correct?
I played first base and I pitched. So
yeah, which is tradition of your family because you're all unbelievable freak athletes there. It's great to see you, man. Thanks so much for doing this. I can't wait to see you out there tomorrow, and we'll be visiting soon here before the draft, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Grey Zabel joining us, NDSU All-American and future NFL, I'm going to say first-round pick. I can say it. We'll wrap up Hot Mike right after this.